After 12 years of financial support, my parents texted, "You're not welcome for Christmas. Your sister's husband needs family space." I didn't argue, just replied, "Okay." I spoke with my lawyer and quietly tallied the $520,000 I'd given them. When I stopped all payments and sold my lake cabin, they suddenly showed up at my door. The first blow arrived at 9:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, vibrating my phone against the cool mahogany desk as I wrestled with quarterly reports. Ding, hi sweetie. Your father and I need to talk to you about Christmas this year. Jessica's husband Kevin feels it would be better if it's just immediate family. He's been stressed with the new baby and wants a quiet celebration. Hope you understand. Love you. I stared at that message, unblinking, for a full minute. Immediate family. The words echoed, hollow and sharp, twisting a knife I hadn't realized was already embedded. As if I wasn't immediate family, as if 12 years of unwavering support, of writing checks, meant absolutely nothing. My thumb hovered, then pressed. Okay. A single word, laden with a weight I knew my mother could never fathom in that moment. I set the phone down, not gently, and opened my laptop. The spreadsheet I created took 3 hours to compile, a meticulous ledger of every bank transfer, every paid bill, every emergency I'd covered since the age of 26. The summer they needed a new roof, $34,000. Dad's medical bills after his heart surgery, $67,000. Mom's car when hers finally died, $28,000. The addition they built for when Jessica and Kevin moved in temporarily, $89,000. Their property taxes for the past 5 years, $73,000. The credit card debt I'd paid off not once, but twice, $91,000. And the monthly stipend I'd been sending for expenses, a quiet, consistent flow of cash, totaling $138,000 over the years. The final sum glared back at me, $520,000. $500,000. And I wasn't immediate family anymore. Wednesday morning, Richard Chin, my lawyer, listened patiently. He'd handled my business affairs for 7 years, ever since I'd launched my marketing consultancy firm. He let me explain the raw, bruising details without interruption. "Do you have documentation?" he finally asked. Every wire transfer, every check, every text message where they asked for money, I replied, my voice steady despite the tremor in my hand. "I keep meticulous records." "Good. What's your goal here, Madison?" "I want to stop all payments immediately. And I need to understand my legal position if they try to claim I owe them something, or that these were loans I need to continue." Richard was quiet, assessing. "Given that you've been making these payments voluntarily, with no written agreement, you're under no legal obligation to continue. However, if they've come to rely on this money, they might try to argue some form of detrimental reliance, or simply create a messy family dispute. Let them try. I'll draft a formal letter documenting that all financial support is ceasing effective immediately. I'll also prepare a summary of all payments made to date. If they push back, we'll be ready." I hung up, the line feeling suddenly lighter, and made my second call. This one was to my real estate agent. The lake cabin. My sanctuary. I'd bought it 4 years ago, a 2-bedroom A-frame on Lake Hartwell with a private dock and a view that melted away city stress. My parents, though, had essentially claimed it, using it every summer, hosting Jessica and Kevin and their children for weeks at a time. I'd barely managed 10 weekends there myself, because it was always occupied by my immediate family. "I want to list it," I told Caroline, my agent. "Price it to sell fast." By Friday, Richard's letter had been dispatched via certified mail and email. By Monday, the cabin had an offer. I accepted that afternoon, $40,000 less than market value. Speed mattered more than money now. The radio silence from my parents lasted precisely 9 days. Then, the dam broke. The first text came from Jessica. Mom said, "You're selling the lake house? What's going on?" I didn't respond. Next, Dad called. I let it go to voicemail. His message was brief, laced with confusion. "Maddie, your mother got some letter from a lawyer. Can you call us? We need to understand what's happening." Delete. Mom tried next, a rambling voicemail filled with worry. disbelief at my actions, and the desperate plea for us all to sit down and talk. The cabin sale closed 3 weeks after Jessica's text. The same day the wire transfer hit my account, an email landed from Jessica's mother-in-law, Patricia, a woman I'd met exactly twice at family gatherings. Subject line, concerned about family situation. Her email was a sprawling, self-righteous lecture about how Jessica had confided in her, how all families go through rough patches, and how I was likely stressed or in a bad relationship, urging me to reconsider my position before causing permanent damage. The sheer audacity of a near stranger lecturing me on my own family dynamics would have been darkly comical if it hadn't been so infuriating. I forwarded it to Richard without a single comment. He replied within the hour, "They're getting desperate. Expect escalation." He was right. 2 days later, my business phone rang. An unfamiliar number, but I answered, thinking it could be a potential client. Madison Foster speaking. Finally. "You've been avoiding your family like we're diseased." Jessica's voice, tight with anger, sliced through the line. "How did you get this number?" I demanded. "Does it matter? We need to talk about what you're doing. Mom is having panic attacks. Dad's blood pressure is through the roof. You're literally making them sick with this stunt." "This isn't a stunt. And if they're having health issues, they should see their doctors. You can't seriously be okay with this, with hurting them like this." "I'm not hurting anyone. I'm simply no longer funding everyone's lifestyle. There's a difference. You know they can't afford the house without your help. They're going to lose it, Madison. Their home, where they raised us. How can you live with yourself?" The manipulation was so textbook, it was almost boring. They can downsize. Plenty of people live in smaller homes. You're unbelievable. You know what? Kevin was right about you. He always said you held money over everyone's head, that you liked feeling superior. That stopped me cold. Kevin said that? The same Kevin who'd asked me for $5,000 last year to buy a motorcycle he couldn't afford? The same one who's been living rent-free in an addition I paid for? Silence. Tell Kevin that if he wants to discuss who holds what over whom, I have 12 years of receipts that tell a very different story. And Jessica, my voice hardened, don't call this number again. This is my business line. If you keep harassing me at work, that becomes a legal matter. I hung up before she could respond, blocking the number instantly. That evening, I poured myself a generous glass of wine and sat on my balcony, watching the city lights blur below. My hands were shaking, not from fear or doubt, but from a righteous anger I'd suppressed for years. Kevin thought I held money over them, when I had never once made them feel bad about asking, when I'd given without keeping score, until they forced me to. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number with a photo attached. It was a picture of my parents' living room, crammed with boxes. My mother sat on the couch, looking utterly distraught. The message, "This is what you're doing to them. Still feel good about yourself." I saved the screenshot, forwarded it to Richard, and blocked that number too. The harassment continued sporadically over the next week. A voicemail from my father's brother, Uncle Tom, whom I hadn't spoken to in 5 years, calling me selfish and a betrayer of the family name. A Facebook message from a second cousin warning I'd regret this when your parents are gone. An email from Jessica with the subject line, "You're going to burn in hell for this." Each message forwarded to Richard. Each number blocked. Each desperate attempt to break me down only reinforced my decision. Then, the doorbell rang. It was 7 o'clock in the evening. Through the peephole, I saw all 4 of them. Mom, Dad, Jessica, and Kevin. My mother's face was pinched with distress. Dad looked older, his shoulders stooped. Jessica had her arms crossed, and Kevin wore an expression that screamed he'd rather be anywhere else. I opened the door, but didn't step aside. "Madison, honey, what's going on?" Mom's voice was already trembling. "We've been trying to reach you for weeks. I've been busy with work. You sold the cabin without telling us." Jessica's tone was accusatory, as if she'd paid a single dollar toward it. "It was my cabin. I can sell it whenever I choose." Dad cleared his throat. "Can we come in and talk about this like adults?" "I'd rather not. If you have something to say, you can say it from there." My mother's eyes filled with tears. "Sweetheart, if this is about Christmas, we can work something out. Kevin was just overwhelmed. This isn't about Christmas. My voice came out colder than I'd intended. Or rather, it's not just about Christmas. It's about being told I'm not immediate family after spending 12 years making sure you could keep your house, your cars, your lifestyle. We never asked you to do all that, Jessica interjected. I actually laughed. You personally asked me for money at least 40 times, including last month when you needed $3,000 for Aiden's medical bills. Kevin shifted uncomfortably. We were going through a hard time, Mom offered, weakly. You've been going through a hard time for 4 years, I countered, looking directly at Kevin. The entire time you've been living rent-free, and in addition I've been helping to pay for. That's not fair, Mom said, tears now freely flowing. We're a family. Family helps each other. Funny. That's exactly what I thought family did. But apparently, family also uninvites family from Christmas because their presence is inconvenient. The silence stretched, thick and suffocating. Dad finally spoke, his voice gruff. So what? You're punishing us? Cutting us off because your feelings got hurt. I'm establishing boundaries. There's a difference. Boundaries. Jessica's laugh was sharp, laced with venom. You're being vindictive. I'm being realistic. I've given you over $500,000 in the past 12 years. I have the documentation if you'd like to see it. Every payment, every emergency, every time one of you called me because you were short on rent, or couldn't make a car payment, or needed help with medical bills. I never said no. I never made you feel bad about asking. I just helped because that's what I thought family did. My mother's face had gone utterly pale. $500,000? That can't be right. $520,000 to be exact. My lawyer has it all itemized. Would you like me to send you a copy? You kept track? Mom's voice broke, as if the very act of record-keeping was an insult. Like we were some kind of charity case? I kept track because I'm a responsible adult who tracks my finances, the same way you would track your budget if you actually had one instead of calling me every time you overspent. Kevin finally found his voice. Look, maybe we didn't realize how much it all added up to. But you can't just abandon your parents because I can absolutely stop giving away my money to people who don't consider me immediate family. That's not abandonment. That's common sense. So that's it? Dad's face was reddening. Years of family connection gone because you're throwing a tantrum? Years of family connection where I was valued exactly as much as my bank account. The moment I wasn't needed for Christmas, I got a text. Not a phone call, not a conversation. A text message uninviting me from the family holiday. You want to know what really made everything clear? Mom didn't even tell me herself. She said your father and I, like you were both in on the decision. But I'd bet money Dad didn't know about that message until after it was sent. Dad's expression confirmed my suspicion. You didn't even tell him, did you? I addressed my mother directly. Because you knew how it would sound. You knew it was wrong. Jessica was having a hard time, Mom whispered, defensively. And Kevin needed space from me? The person who's been subsidizing his life for years? The person who paid for the addition he's living in? We didn't know you felt this way, Mom said, almost to herself. You never asked. In 12 years, not once did any of you ask if I was okay, if I needed help, if supporting all of you was impacting my life. You just assumed the money would always be there because it always had been. Jessica stepped forward, a forced apology on her lips. So, what do you want? An apology? Fine. We're sorry. Can we move past this now? An apology that's clearly forced because you're panicking about money? No thanks. Then what? Jessica's voice rose shrill. What do you actually want from us? Nothing. That's the point. I want nothing from you anymore. And you're going to get nothing from me. No more bailouts, no more emergency funds, no more monthly checks. You're all adults. Figure it out like I had to. You had advantages, Kevin muttered. I worked 80-hour weeks building my business. I lived in a studio apartment until I was 30 because I was sending my money to you. What advantages are you talking about? The advantage of not having 3 other people constantly asking me for handouts. Mom was crying openly now. How can you be so cruel? We're your parents, and you raised me to believe family was supposed to be there for each other. I was there every single time. Where were you when I was working myself sick trying to get my business off the ground? Where were you when I landed my first major client and wanted to celebrate? I called you that night, Mom. You talked for 5 minutes before asking if I could spot you money for a car repair. She flinched. I'm not being cruel. I'm being honest for the first time in over a decade. You trained me to be your ATM, and I let you, because I thought that's what love looked like. But love doesn't send a text message uninviting you from Christmas. Love doesn't treat you like an inconvenience while still expecting you to pay the bills. We never meant to make you feel that way, Dad said quietly, his bluster gone. Maybe not, but that's exactly what happened. And I'm done pretending it's okay. Jessica's voice turned icy. Fine, we'll manage without you. Don't expect us to come running when you need something. I've never needed anything from you. That's the difference. They stood there for another moment, and I could see the calculations behind their eyes, the dawning panic about next month's expenses, the terrifying realization that their safety net had vanished. Can we at least talk about this reasonably? Dad tried again. Maybe work out some kind of transition period? You had a transition period. It lasted from the day you sent that text until now. That's more warning than I got about Christmas. Your mother made a mistake, Dad said. One mistake shouldn't end everything. It wasn't one mistake. It was 12 years of mistakes that I ignored because I wanted to believe we were a real family. That text was just the moment I stopped lying to myself. Mom reached out, as if to touch my arm, then thought better of it. Please, honey, don't do this. We can fix things. Some things are too broken to fix. You taught me that, actually. Remember when I dated Marcus, and you told me I needed to stop giving to someone who only took? You said I deserved better than being someone's backup plan. You were right. I did deserve better. I still do. The irony wasn't lost on her. Her face crumpled. I think you should all leave now, I said quietly. Madison, Jessica started. Leave. If you have something else to say, you can email my lawyer. His contact information was in the letter you received. Kevin pulled at Jessica's arm. Come on, she's not going to listen. They retreated slowly, like they expected me to change my mind at the last second, to call them back and apologize, to restore everything to how it was before. I closed the door instead. Through the window, I watched them cluster on the sidewalk, an animated discussion unfolding. Jessica gestured wildly. Mom was still crying. Dad looked utterly defeated. Kevin just looked angry. Eventually, they got in their cars and drove away. My phone started buzzing almost immediately. A text from Jessica calling me selfish. A voicemail from Mom begging me to reconsider. An email from Dad with the subject line, "We need to talk about this like family." I blocked all their numbers. I set up an email filter to automatically archive anything from their addresses. I even changed my locks, though they'd never had keys, because I wasn't taking chances. The next few weeks felt strange. I kept expecting to feel guilty, to second-guess my decision. But every time doubt crept in, I remembered that text message, the casual dismissal, the sheer assumption that I'd just accept being excluded from my own family's celebration. Lydia, my business partner, noticed the change during our weekly meeting. You seem different, she observed, a slight smile playing on her lips. Lighter somehow. I cut off my family. She set down her coffee cup. The ones who are always calling you for money? Those would be the ones. How do you feel about it? Honestly? Free. Like I've been carrying a weight I didn't even realize was there. Lydia nodded. Good. You deserve people who value you for more than your wallet. A month after their doorstep appearance, a letter arrived from a different lawyer. They were requesting mediation to resolve the family dispute and reach an amicable agreement regarding ongoing support. Richard called me the same day. They're trying to formalize a claim that you verbally agreed to provide continued support based on what? Years of pattern and practice, apparently. Their lawyer is arguing you created an expectation of ongoing financial assistance. Can they actually make that stick in court? Unlikely. But they might be banking on you wanting to avoid the publicity or emotional toll of a legal battle. Tell them no. No mediation, no negotiation. If they want to sue me, they can try. They didn't sue. Instead, the pressure campaign escalated. Relatives I barely knew started calling, voicing their disappointment in my behavior. Cousins sent messages about how family was supposed to forgive. An aunt left a rambling voicemail about how my parents were struggling and couldn't I find it in my heart to help? I changed my number. The week after, a letter arrived in the mail. Not from a lawyer this time, but handwritten on floral stationery. My mother's careful cursive covered 3 pages. She wrote about her sleepless nights, about replaying our last conversation, about crying over old photo albums, seeing pictures of me as a child. She wrote about the sacrifices she and Dad had made raising Jessica and me, how they'd gone without so we could have dance lessons and summer camps. She expressed her profound disappointment that I couldn't see past one mistake to remember all the good times we'd shared. The letter was a greatest hits collection of guilt trips. And somewhere around page 2, I realized she genuinely believed every word. In her mind, she had been a good mother. My financial support was simply what successful children did for their parents. The Christmas exclusion was a minor misstep I was blowing out of proportion. She ended with, "I'm not asking for money, Madison. I'm asking for my daughter back. Please come home." I read it twice, then filed it away in a folder I'd labeled documentation. Because even now, even after everything, part of me knew they might try to twist this narrative someday. These letters, these messages, these transparent attempts to paint me as the villain, they were all just further evidence of exactly why I'd made the right choice. My therapist, Dr. Sarah Brennan, had been instrumental in helping me process everything. I'd started seeing her a month after cutting contact, needing professional help to navigate the guilt and doubt that occasionally surfaced. "Your mother's letter is a perfect example of what we've discussed," Sarah said during our session that week. "She's rewriting history to cast herself as the victim. The sacrifices she's describing? Those are standard parenting responsibilities. The fact that she's using them as leverage shows a fundamental misunderstanding of the parent-child relationship. Sometimes I wonder if I'm remembering things worse than they were," I admitted. "Like maybe I'm exaggerating how bad it was to justify my decision." "Do you believe that?" I thought about it. Really thought about it. No. I have the bank records, the text messages. The evidence isn't in my head. Exactly. Trust your documentation. Trust your experience. Your mother is asking for her daughter back, but she's not acknowledging that she pushed her daughter away. That's not accountability. That's more manipulation. The session helped, but the letter still bothered me for days afterward. Not because it made me want to reconcile, but because it confirmed how wide the gap between us really was. We weren't even living in the same reality anymore. Jessica tried reaching out through LinkedIn of all places. Her message was a masterpiece of manipulation, talking about how the kids missed their aunt, how holidays weren't the same without me, and how maybe we could start fresh. I didn't respond. 3 months after I closed my door on them, I ran into my mother at the grocery store. She looked thinner, older. For a moment, we just stared at each other across the produce section. She approached slowly, like I might bolt. "Madison." "Hi, Mom. How are you?" "Fine. You?" "We're managing. Your father picked up some extra consulting work. Jessica found a part-time job. That's good. We had to downsize. Sold the house and moved into an apartment. The place Jessica and Kevin were renting. I didn't ask which apartment. I didn't want to know. Madison, her voice cracked. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for how we treated you. You were right about everything. We took advantage of your generosity, and we didn't appreciate you the way we should have." "Okay." My voice was flat. "Is that all you have to say?" "What do you want me to say, Mom?" "That it's fine, that we can go back to how things were." "We can't." "You made sure of that." "Can't we at least try?" "I'm your mother. You're the person who gave birth to me. But being a mother is more than biology. It's showing up. It's valuing your child as a person, not a resource. You didn't do that. I know. I know I failed you, but I want to do better. We all do. Then do better for yourselves. Build a life you actually can afford. Learn to live within your means. Be there for each other the way you should have been there for me. But do it without me. You're really not coming back, are you?" "No." She nodded slowly, tears tracing paths down her weathered cheeks. "I understand. I don't like it, but I understand. For what it's worth, I'm proud of you. I always have been. I just did a terrible job of showing it. Yeah, you did. If you ever change my mind, I won't. She reached out and squeezed my hand once, quickly, then turned and walked away. I watched her leave, this woman who had raised me and failed me in equal measure. I felt a pang of sadness, yes, but overwhelmingly, I felt certain. Some bridges need to burn so you can stop trying to cross them. 6 months later, I bought a new lake house. This one was on Lake Kiowa, bigger and more private than the last. I hosted a housewarming party, inviting my real friends, the people who'd supported me through the chaos of the past year. Lydia raised her glass in a toast to Madison, who had the courage to choose herself. Everyone cheered, and I felt something shift inside me. The residual guilt that had been lurking in the corners of my mind finally released its grip. I'd made the right choice. Not the easy one, not the one that would make everyone else happy, but the right one for me. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is Jessica using a friend's phone. Dad had another heart episode. In the hospital. Thought you should know. I stared at the message for a long time. This was the test, wasn't it? The ultimate emergency, designed to pull me back in. The crisis that would prove I was the heartless daughter they probably told everyone I was. I turned off my phone and rejoined my party. The next morning, I sent a brief response. I hope he recovers. My lawyer's contact information remains the same if you need to reach me for legal matters. That was 2 years ago. I haven't heard from them since. I don't know if Dad fully recovered. I don't know if they're still in that apartment, or if they found somewhere else. I don't know if Jessica's kids remember me. Sometimes people ask if I regret it, cutting off my entire family over a Christmas text. The answer is always the same. I didn't cut them off over a text. I cut them off over 12 years of being treated like a bank account with a daughter attached. The text just made it impossible to ignore anymore. My life is quieter now, simpler. I have friends who call because they want to hear my voice, not because they need money. I have a business that thrives because I'm not exhausted from emotional labor that goes nowhere. I have a lake house where I actually spend weekends reading and kayaking and existing without waiting for the next crisis call. I have peace.